by the time Selena came to work with me in inquiry, she had narrowed down her problem to a fear of intimacy. And she also knew that there was shame and a feeling that she was unlovable, and that those things made up the root of her suffering. And so I was asking her, but haven't you had trouble ending that suffering? And she said, yeah, I'm with a teacher who says, don't worry about that. Just let it all come and go. And I said, okay, well, how many times do you have to let shame come and go? Unlovability and this fear, how many relationships? What if you have not found the core? And she said, well, I've been watching you, and I tested as an anger repressor, but I don't think that's what it is. I said, well, if I could tell you how many times people come to work with me saying something like that, can I tell you that that's how I started this work, is being convinced that I didn't have anger. And I had chronic nerve pain at the same time. So you have suffering, and you've labeled it shame, unlovability, and a fear of intimacy. And I was explaining to her that I don't disagree with any of that. But if there's something under it, or that is more practical and useful that you can discover, will actually transmute the contraction in your body, you're going to work through that fear of intimacy. And I said, are you open to the idea that your body isn't lying to you? That when you took our repression test, when your body said that you have to hold back anger more than anything else, even though you couldn't feel the anger and you felt it just in that contraction, that's you telling you that and not me or Dan or anyone. And she said, yeah, that's why I'm here. But the thing is it's like with a lot of us anger repressors, we there's a wall that we carry around us, we have around us, but we will not own it. And the wall is, I'm not angry. And that's because we bury it, and then we're so innocent in it because we don't know we did it. And when someone confronts us or says something about it, or, of course, shame can come up. But her resistance was more like she wanted to be right. It wasn't shame. It was, she wanted to prove to me that it was just a fear of intimacy. And I said, I don't disagree with you. But what makes you afraid of intimacy? So we went into process, and I'll just shorten it for you. She pulled up her partner, Joe, and just looked at Joe like a scenario on the left screen of her awareness, so to speak, of in bed with Joe, sexual intimacy. And then on the right side of her awareness, she put just sitting eye to eye with Joe, being loving, playful, intimate, emotionally connected, heart connected. And getting her to see that her body has the same fear in both places, so that whatever's operating, it's operating in both places. So she saw that. But then we went back to the repression. And I said, let's start here, though. Let's start at a level of consciousness that you're aware of. Because repression, people aren't. So if you can't be intimate with Joe, what does that mean about you as you feel into your body? And she said, I'm unlovable. I said, okay, so let's just go ahead and pull Dad up here with that one then. That's old probably. And even though you're not intimate with Dad, just put Dad and Joe up. And we're not even going to go with I'm unlovable. I want you to say this as you feel into the contraction. I'm not angry at them. And she said it. And she's like, oh, yes, I am. But she couldn't feel the anger. And it's at this point where we had to stop the process, because she said, that's contraction. That's a fear of intimacy. I said, but the inquiry was, I'm not angry at them. You drop that in your experience. And if you trust your body contracted to say, I'm angry. But your mind came in and said, you're afraid of intimacy. That's probably true. I'm sure it is, actually. But we're getting to the root of that. So can you trust your body? And she said, yeah, but this is the part that I have trouble with. And I said, okay. But she was willing to go into it and make the mental conditioning in the body that was buried conscious, that was burying that anger. So she saw it clearly because she saw that there was really strong conditioning on holding anger back with Dad and also with Joe, but everybody. And so that's why she couldn't be intimate. Intimacy, she saw, really had nothing to do with sex, although sex is implicated. It has to do with her being her authentic self with people. She found that she couldn't be her authentic self with strangers, with Joe, friends, Mom and Dad, and that she found it was the buried anger that kept that from happening. So by focusing on the quote-unquote fear of intimacy, well, let me tell you how she found that, or how anyone would find that. I had her look at those words and just sense that in her awareness of fear of intimacy. And I said, say this, what do you get out of believing it's just a fear of intimacy and not anger? She said that. What do I get out of believing it's a fear of intimacy and not that I'm angry at them? She wasn't on board with the idea that she would get anything out of that. But eventually she heard her body say, it keeps me safe and it gets me love. So we explored that's the unconscious talking. That she was, now think about that for a second, how deep that went for her. To see that she had labeled her experience and her problem as a fear of intimacy so she wouldn't have to feel the buried anger that she had for Dad and then for every other guy, including Joe. And then that's what kept her from being authentic and therefore intimate, because it doesn't have anything to do with sex really. But then it also spilled over into the bed, to the bedroom. So with her, it's like everyone else. She'll begin a process of, instead of focusing on the fear of intimacy, she will, but she'll connect it to holding back anger. And something that she'll discover is that she has unexpressed, unmet needs. So, for example, sitting with Joe on the couch, in an intimate setting, she may have a need for affection or a need for love or a need for something, and he may or may not be meeting that need or attention or something, or meeting it in the right way. But she's going to discover as an anger repressor that she doesn't express those needs. And so that's a setup, because with Joe, she doesn't express what she needs. She has buried anger. So what comes forth is, I'm unlovable, which protects her from knowing that it's buried anger and keeps her from seeing that she's not expressing her needs. Because by the time her needs aren't met, it's just a trigger. And she feels again unlovable. See that? But if she were to express her needs earlier, she would see that she has buried anger. Because the needs, the unmet needs that are not expressed, are also very closely associated with anger, which is unexpressed. It goes back to childhood. When the fundamental need isn't met, like it wasn't for Selena or me, you, the fundamental need is to know what we are, our true nature awareness, to be awake, and to allow it all. What else could allow it all? And so we didn't get that need met. She didn't either. So she had a need for love, attention, whatever else. She had buried anger because she wasn't allowed to feel that emotion when she was a kid. She didn't get to discover her true nature, and she didn't get to feel and allow it all. Discover her authenticity. So she's been suffering by having these unmet needs, these unprocessed emotions, and then having relationships with people that she didn't express her needs in, and people that she's angry at. She doesn't acknowledge the anger. And she labels all of that as just a fear of intimacy, hiding it all from herself. It's important to get into your body, even when you think you know what your issue is. It's the body that tells you the truth. The mind manages and seeks safety. Thanks for listening.